Welcome back to Squawk Box. China's President Xi meeting with some of the biggest names in the country's tech sector, including Alibaba's co-founder Jack Ma and the CEO of Tencent, BYD, I should mention, DeepSeek, and others. For more on the tech race and AI between the U.S. and China, I want to bring in Michelle Guida, CEO of Purdue University's Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy. She served as Assistant Secretary for State for Global Public Affairs in the first Trump administration. I want to thank you for joining us this morning. First of all, before we get into any of it, were you surprised that Jack Ma was involved in all of this?
Not surprised. I think we were all really shocked when he disappeared for, let's say, the better part of 4 years, almost 5 years. But to see him reemerge now, not as surprising, because we know that General Secretary Xi Jinping has big ambitions when it comes to high tech, that he wants to do something to help bolster his economy, and then also signal geopolitically that they are here to compete. And they're here to win and lead in emerging technology. So not a surprise, but an important reminder that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is supreme and exists to serve itself. So this is not pro-private sector. This is not how can Xi Jinping help unleash what they're doing. This is, if you're Jack Ma, if you're the DeepSeek CEO, it's ask not what Xi Jinping can do for you, but what you can do for Xi Jinping.
Where do you think the U.S., OpenAI, and our efforts are as it relates to China? Meaning, who do you think really is leading in all of this, given some of the big questions about the success of DeepSeek? Obviously, there are also questions about how much of what they've done was stolen from the United States.
Well, the U.S. private sector is leading, has been leading, and I think under the current administration, we've seen a renewed focus on making sure that the private sector is unleashed, that we are pro-innovation, innovation first, regulation second. And so I think the United States has made enormous strides with what OpenAI is doing in ChatGPT and AI, and what we're doing in a number of other technologies. But let's be clear that China is here to surpass us and to use their high tech and their emerging technologies, whether or not they engineered it themselves or in most cases stole some of our own intellectual property in order to set global standards and really set the values, the authoritarian values that they
Michelle,
hold dear to define
technology. Do you
technology.
believe, when you look at a DeepSeek or even some of the other models that have come out even the last week, do you think they have access to NVIDIA chips that they are not supposed to have access to? Or do you believe that they actually are innovating in a way to make their AI more efficient, meaning that they don't actually need as fast a chip?
It's probably a combination of both. We know that they get their hands on some advanced chips from NVIDIA, even though their export controls are ways for them to get it by bypassing through some other countries. So likely they have some advanced chips. But look, Chinese are really good at engineering efficiently. We saw this way back in the day with Bell Labs when they invented the first digital switch. It was a big revelation. Only months later did China come out with their own digital switch that was much more efficient and cost a lot less. So we've seen this before. And so the imperative for the United States is to keep innovating, to keep advancing our own enterprise so that we are leading and setting the global standards for these technologies before China.
Is it engineering or reverse engineering, Michelle? It's new engineering or is it stealing? Or some of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. We know, and any business leader will tell you, that China has made a practice out of stealing intellectual property. They, in fact, will tell it to your face. It's just how they do business. And so they take intellectual property from our most advanced tech companies, and then they engineer it to become more efficient. It's what they've been doing for decades. And so we have to be really smart about our own export controls, whether it's NVIDIA chips or more advanced technologies as we develop them. And we also have to make sure that we are leading with our own innovation so that we are getting there faster, smarter, and better, and working with our allies, by the way, in order to lead in these technologies.
And so do you believe that we should be preventing these chips from getting to China? I mean, there's an argument to be made by some, I'm not advancing it myself, that, you know what, give them the chips. That if you don't give them the chips, that they're actually going to get even smarter about getting more efficient.
We should absolutely be sure that we're not giving them our most advanced chips and our most advanced technology. They have a program called military civil fusion, and that simply means there is no separation between consumer technologies and what they use for the People's Liberation Army. And so any chip that we give them is going to give them a faster, more competitive advantage to fuel their military and other critical technologies that threaten the security of the United States. So the more that we can be sure to slow that down, at least not give our technology to those who are dedicated to our demise, the more secure we will be.
Let's just real quick talk about the balance between innovation on one end, and you were talking about regulation on the other. And I think you were suggesting we need to be foot on the pedal on the innovation side, and at least for now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, disregard the regulation side. I'm curious how you think about that balance, only because there are folks like the CEOs, by the way, of OpenAI, also of Anthropic and some of the other big AI companies in the United States that say, you know what? Especially for some of the open source stuff, it gets scary really quickly if you don't have some guardrails on things.
Yeah, it's innovation first, regulation second, not no regulation. And I think that's where the United States is headed right now. We see what happens when you take a regulation first approach. You just have to look no farther than Europe and their own self-assessment with the Draghi report that came out a few months ago, that they are devastatingly behind in terms of their tech competitiveness. It's going to take $800 billion a year to try to make up for it. That's twice the percentage of GDP they spent to recover from World War II and the Marshall Plan. So leading with regulation is a guarantee for failure. Leading with innovation, with light touch regulation, is a smart approach, and that's where the United States is headed.
Michelle, I want to thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.